Globespan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion with the pros, the cons, the ones that have taken a side, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globespan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation building. Globespan believes that every Guyanese voice is part of the nation building. As we span the globe for voices from the diaspora and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana. This land is our land now. As the world turns on its axis, bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adapt to those changes for a better Guyana for all. Globespan stands on its axis with its belief that one nation, one Guyana, one destiny must include voices from all corners of Guyana.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. We are here again at Globespan 24/7, bringing to you another broadcast, election 2025 updates, and also a discussion on what's ahead of us. Here we are tonight. We've been doing quite a frequent amount of programs just to try to keep everyone informed and to be able to have discussions around events that's been unfolding prior and post-election. So while I'm making these announcements, please go ahead and share the program. And if you have not subscribed on YouTube, please go ahead and press the subscribe button. It does gives you indication whenever we go live, you receive those notifications. So once again, Globespan 24/7 is in its 6th year, offering a community service for all voices. The platform invites all political parties, civil and religious leaders to share their opinions and address concerns. You could contact Globespan 24/7 by calling 631-782-8694, or you could email support@globespan247.com. I also want to encourage our viewers that you could go ahead and post valid questions. I'll be happy to transmit those questions over to our two distinguished guests tonight, men of caliber, men of substance, men who have planted their feet onto the soil of Guyana and have chosen a path of being voices for the people. And their voices come from different aspects, but certainly they have stayed the course and they have withstood the test of time. So join with me in welcoming Mr. Christopher Ram, attorney of law and charter accountant. He was referred to by one of the viewers in Orlando of one of the last few Mohicans standing. And then in addition to that, we have Mr. GHK Lall. He's a public advocate and certainly has been on the circuit many times and have also been a frequent guest on Globespan 24/7. In addition to these two gentlemen, we are supposed to have Mr. Timothy Jonas, senior counsel. However, there seemed to have been a mix-up with our dates. He didn't realize that he was on Globespan 24/7 on 2 consecutive days. So not to mention, he did have another commitment, so he's asking to be excused tonight. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, we just finished September 1st, just passed us. Couple of days, we had our election 2025. While the election day unfolded in a very quiet and cordial way, with, notwithstanding some of the hiccups, but nothing compared to what we have had in the past. So we are very grateful to, the God Almighty and also to all the contributors that has made the voting day one of much more better than what it used to be in the past. So I want to now go over to Mr. GHK to give us an update in terms of what has been happening on the circuit with respect to the vote counting and any update announcements coming in from the political parties and also from GCOM. Mr. GHK.
Thank you, Mr. Nohar. Good evening, Mr. Ram, and good evening, viewers, listeners, wherever you may be. My pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I get pretty nervous, even alarmed, when I hear the word distinguished men. I think that's very apropos for Mr. Ram, but in terms of myself, I kind of start looking over my shoulder. Who's he talking about? Thank you again for being here. Before we go forward into those questions, there are two things I will take the opportunity to address our fellow Guyanese, our fellow West Indian people who are part of this program. I have been privileged to be called to this program, and I'm going to say this now. Mr. Singh doesn't know this. Before I came on the first program, I went and asked around, who are these people? Who is Globespan? Who is Mr. Nohar Singh? Because my idea of participating in the public space is that I will only share with those that I consider respectable, people of integrity, and I have not been displeased at all in terms of the standards here. I bring my own standards, and whatever they may be, we try to share with you, our fellow citizens. You may not agree, and that's fine. But every now and again, things happen, and I want to talk about that before we go into our elections issue. When civilized men sit around a table or sit in a room to have discussion, civilized discussion over issues of the day, there are certain established norms, standards that are expected, that are practiced. And unfortunately, I have had the experience where some unmentionable character from some unknown place took it upon himself to come after me. I don't know if to please his bosses in the political hierarchy or he was sent to do that. I thought that was the end of that, and that one was on me. Lo and behold, just recently in a program here, I was kind of surprised and appalled that we had a repeat of this. These people, I don't know them, never had a discussion with them. So how is it that you lack certain basic professionalism or courtesy, that we cannot be civil because of politics, because of your perception of my politics? What I thought happened was not a lack of courtesy. I thought it was a premeditated obscenity. And so I'm going to say to everybody, my Christian bearing held me back. Those two are on me. A third time is not going to happen because I'm saying to the world now the gloves are taken off, or I will just not be a part of the conversation. So I had to get that off there because it bothered me. The second thing is that, I was overzealous last night. I got carried away, and I'm a little embarrassed in that here I was following the crowd and not thinking in extending congratulations to the PPP, the president, the vice president, Jack Deo, for us having this election when the results were not official and still are not fully official as of today when we speak. I misspoke. I certainly did not do well there, and I felt I need to apologize to you folks. I didn't hold to my standards. If there's one good thing that came out of that, though, I will tell you, I am glad that I went and said, congratulations are extended. Now, I'm not withdrawing it. I'm just hitting the pause button to see how all these things turn out. But one good thing that I think came out of that is that to prove to people that the GHK Lalls of the world and the Chris Rams and others like us, there are a few of us, we are not anti-PPP. We are not anti-PNC or anti-Exxon. We are pro-Guyana. We want what's good for the Guyanese people, and this costs us. Sometimes the disagreement becomes very derogatory. We can live with that. But let us see how we can serve this place. Now, from that backdrop, and I thank you, gentlemen, for listening, and I thank you, audience, for being tolerant of that little mea culpa. Elections. Today, I am back here a day later, and we are not officially concluded. We haven't had a declaration from GCOM. So what happened yesterday was both premature and overzealousness on my part. As I said, I hit the pause button. What are the numbers? The numbers are there and they're coming out today. And I'm seeing the PNC, aka APNU, saying we want a partial recount in a sub-district of Region 4, and that has been approved, and that should start tomorrow. And WIN is asking for a recount of all of Region 4. The numbers here, and Mr. Ram, I'm sure, is just raring to go here. It's kind of staggering. The PPP is 7,000 up from 80,000 in 2020. The PNC is down 70,000 from 116,000 in 2020 to 46,000 in 2025. Yes, the voter turnout was low and voter apathy and inspirational leadership from the PNC, etc. But 70,000 drop, something does not feel right there. I am not fetching any water for the PNC. They have to fight that. And I understand that they have put out a Facebook post and they have, Mr. Norton has made a statement. Good for him. I'm glad to see him in action. And Mr. Mohammed is very much in the thick of things. And whoever wins here, whoever wins, what Region 4 and all the other regions. Let's have a process under which what I said last night, that is credible and which we can hang our hat on and say we have a good one and we have a good result and we can go forward with good faith. But we are not there yet. And these numbers are troubling in terms that they leave us hanging. And so I am thinking I'm going back to 2020 when Mr. Mingo had his spreadsheets. They were rather crude and rude and whatever else, and people were swarming all over the place. Here it is, we have numbers that are out of this world, and it's just people like me and Ram and Jonas and whomever, maybe not even Mr. Jonas, who are saying, well, what is happening here and where are the other voices? What really is the story with these numbers? How can we get to the truth behind them? And that's what I want to put on the table, and I hand back to you. And it's concerning to me, Mr. Nohar, and I think it has to be concerning to all Guyanese interested in a credible elections 2025.
Yeah, and Mr. GHK, just to inform the viewers and bring Mr. Christopher Ram up to date. Last night, Globespan also joined and extend congratulations to the PPP and Dr. President Irfan Ali. And we were taken to task for that because the fact is that it's not official. It wasn't declared by GCOM. And we obviously, some of our viewers felt that it was an overreach from our side to make any announcement prematurely. So for those type of sentiments, we do appreciate and we certainly welcome whenever our viewers also feel they don't agree with some of the things that we say on this platform. And as Mr. GHK pointed out, one of the fundamental pillar of Globespan is that we all agree to disagree, but certainly we want to be able to come out with some consensus. I want to go over to Mr. Christopher Ram. Mr. Christopher Ram, you have seen this over and over. You probably start experiencing election when I was still in short pants. So please tell us what's your view of the election in 2025, and from your lens, what are you seeing and what are you reading?
Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening, especially to your viewers. Whenever you hear about calls for reform, you do get concerned because you assume that there are legitimate concerns. And it will be very unfortunate if there is any kind of improper conduct that add further suspicions to the integrity of our elections. Once GHK has correctly pointed out that situation with Region 4 and the APNU, it is not particularly unique, because I was looking at, say, Region 1, Barima Waini, 2015. In 2015, APNU had 2,788 votes in that region. In 2020, 3,909. Now, of course, things had changed. You had the AFC also within the coalition vote for 15 and 20. Now, in 2025, that number has dropped down to 469. Let me repeat that: 2788, 3909, 469. Some of that, and from all accounts, a lot of it would be the votes that have moved from the APNU to win the We Invest in Guyana, that is Azzuddin Mohammed's party. You do have some very strange numbers, but I think and we know these numbers are preliminary. I don't think GCOM tomorrow can announce the results as they said they would, because there's a recount in plan beginning tomorrow morning, and already it took almost 48 hours to get those results. Now to get the recount is probably going to be just as long, and that immediately is a cause for concern.
Yeah.
I don't wish to pronounce one way or the other. Yes, numbers have shifted dramatically. I think what has in fact happened, the win has got a lot of votes that would have gone to APNU. The APNU is a big loser in the elections, and I'm sure we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Ram. And just to echo this part of the discussion, Paul Singh wrote, I'm very surprised that Globespan were congratulating the PPP when GCOM haven't made any declarations. So Paul Singh, I just want you to know it was just basically an indication of what was coming out from all the different newscasts and some of the numbers that we were pulling out of the SOPs that were posted. So it wasn't official, and you're absolutely correct. We are in total agreement with you, Paul Singh. We should not have been forecasting in such a manner. But keeping on the topic of the election in itself, I would just like to read to the viewers the statement from GCOM. September 3rd, 2025, the Guyana Election Commission has received a valid request for the recount of the ballots cast in Sub-District 4 of District 4 from a Partnership for National Unity, APNU. In this regard, the Commission will conduct a recount on Thursday, September 4th, 2025 from 800 hours using a total of 25 workstations. The recount exercise will proceed uninterrupted until completion. Just for our viewers' knowledge, the Sub-District 4 of District 4 is really the East Coast Demerara. That's the area that they're looking for recount. And as Mr. GHK pointed out in his opening, also WIN is requesting recounts in several areas. The entire Region 4 and I believe they also talking about some other regions that they will be requesting. So more to come. We would keep you up to date. One of the things that we want to touch about the election 2025, though, is the voters' turnout. Mr. GHK, what's your reading of just less than 50% turnout? In talking to Professor Paul Tennessee today, he mentioned to me that this could be an indication of voters' alienation, which is not good for, it needs a deeper study, a deeper dive, but what this can do to, in terms of participating in our economy, in the growth of the nation, when just about 50% of your voters did not participate in the election. What is your take on that?
Well, again, the numbers are startling. The, before I get to that, let me go back to Mr. Rams, Barima Waini. Here you have in 2015 to 2020 a 50% increase. Then in 2025 for the PNC, in that same region one, you've got a 90%, 90% drop. I mean, this is precipitous. It's a free fall. And so now we're talking about 460,000 votes in 2020, total votes, 70%. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard last night 372,000 372,000 was the total number of votes. Do I have that right, gentlemen? Mr. Ram?
Maybe at that point, but I don't think that's the number as of now.
As of
I
now,
think it's
okay.
Yes.
All right. So what the number is lower than before. Now, I'm sure we're going to be talking relative to what? So we're talking relative to 2020. Voter alienation, I agree with. Voter apathy, I said that myself. Voter disgust, because they see all this money being spent, being budgeted, being allocated, being spent, and they see the headlines. We are in an interconnected world, an instantaneous world, social media. And the Guyana is in the news all the time. The political parties make use of the social media platforms. And so the ordinary citizen is saying, what has happened to me and why I'm featuring in the statistics, but why am I not sharing in the reality of what those statistics mean? You know, I've got the biggest GDP, and I'm one of the fastest growing economy in the world. And yet here it is that I can't buy a Bangamiri or a loaf of bread on a consistent basis. How do you tell that person to come out and vote? How do you incentivize that person with all these promises they heard? They're like, are you going to deliver? I think in addition to voter alienation, there is voter distrust. We're talking about simple folks here. We're not talking about statisticians and accountants and numbers people. We're not talking about people who are dealing in logic. We are talking about people who are dealing in the logic of the kitchen and the logic of border market and Stabroek market. And that's what these voter numbers translate to. I do not think that you will fulfill those promises, or you had time to do that and you didn't, or I do not trust you, Mr. Leader, whichever leader it is, to make me whole, to make me feel that I'm a part of this robust economy. And so that translated, well, whatever it is, but it's a voter negative. It translated to the people saying, I ain't going out and vote. And so that part of the electoral equation, we can rest our heads on and say that one is accurate whilst we're talking about numbers. And that's where I stand.
Yeah, yeah. Just another comment from the low voter turnout is people were fed up with the electoral system and the political parties, and that is why Mohammed could have made such a headway. That's another comment coming in, and I also want to welcome Mr. Collins Singh again from Canada. There isn't one Globespan program that I've been on and he has not joined. Mr. Christopher, again, you're elder in our society, and we could drill down to, the comments that Mr. GHK is making regarding cost of living, etc., and could be, why one or some of the reason why some of the voters were despondent. But there's a bigger issue at hand here that which it would should be concerning to all the citizens who voted, and that is to say that one, your they could be in the office, they could be walking the street, they could be in the bus, they could be any part of the economy. And when your person standing next to you, the likely chance that person did not participate in the electoral process, then you have someone that is unhappy, more than likely unhappy, someone that is not going to be a part of this bigger process, which is Guyana. I mean, in this sense here, from that aspect of it, this 50% that did not turn out, to what extent does this worry you, or to what extent does it play such a ring the alarm bell that we need to be able to address as a nation, not only as a political party?
Well, in talking about the 50%, we asked 50% of what? We know that the list has a number, couple 100,000 of Guyanese who are not resident in Guyana. And so they would not have been expected to vote anyway. You have persons on the list who are deceased. Their names are still there. So those are legitimate. Then you have people within Guyana. And I've got two particular examples of persons dying some time ago, several months ago, and their names are still on the list. So quite what is that list? Quite what do we use as the denominator in order to get turnout percentage? What we have found, again, these numbers are subject to change, recount. They haven't been announced by GCOM, but they've been out there. What we have found is that measured against 2020, there has been a decline of over 5% in the number of votes. In fact, it's probably about 4.7% in the number of persons who went to vote. Why do people make such a decision? You would think that persons would say, look, I'm going to vote the lesser of whatever evils. Some are going to say, well, if I have to make a choice between evils, I'm not going to do it. The slate that was presented to me, I find it unacceptable, and I don't wish to carry the burden of saying that my vote caused those persons to get into power. Of course, your vote could also, by not voting, you could cause somebody to get into power. So we know that the numbers are less than 2020. The question is what could have given rise to that? That even if we assume that the figures are correct, GHK suggested it might be just, look, they're all the same. They're all planning, oh, we can give you more and more money. There's not a lot of things that are different between the parties at these elections. The PPP said we're competent, but we know there's another C word that a label that the PPP has not been able to divest itself of.
Yeah.
And that's corruption. Contracts. So Mr. Aubrey Norton has had one of the most spectacular falls against, again, accepting the numbers, he has had one of the most spectacular falls in political history. You said, I remember the elections of 1955 when the Bornamite faction of the PPP and the Jaganite faction, which was quite a funny thing in its own right, because the PNC had not yet been established, and there was still a struggle for the name of PPP. So, but that single issue has had such an impact on the political landscape. The PNC has never got less. What they got, 70,000 votes or something like that in total. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then you have the Win Party coming in and really, as somebody used the word, cannibalize the votes of the APNU, whilst the PPP may have lost some votes to the Win. Certainly, it is not in the kind of numbers. So the PPP not only held on to the regions that they had won before, but they got additional regions, including Region 4, which is being made into a big thing. But of course, look, Region 4 now and Region 4 20 years ago, you didn't have the large housing communities, etc. So the comparison, apples and grapes, mangoes and white tea or something like that.
Yeah. So I want to come back to the PPP numbers in a minute or so, but Mr. J. Barrett posted, would you say, Mr. Ram, that the low turnout was due to PNC people staying home? Yes, no, just a 1 minute on that.
One can only speculate, and I really do believe it's going to be a mix of all types of things. We don't know who are the people who have in fact stayed home.
Yeah. Okay. Moving to you, Mr.
Could I,
GHK.
Mr. Singh, before you go forward, who stayed home? I can tell you I did my own little amateur survey. I talked to about 8 people that I know, and I expected that they would have stayed home, and they didn't disappoint. 7 out of the 8 stayed home, and I said, why? And almost uniformly, the response was, what difference they gonna make? Still they were there. Because these chaps say one thing when they want your vote, when they're campaigning, and when they're gone in there, is a different story. And IGAF still struggle because at the end of the day, this is where they're. So, I mean, that's pretty amateur, right? But I wonder how much that could be leveraged, and it is representative of people's sentiments in that I don't trust you. I don't think you can deliver. I don't think that you have what it takes in terms of character to lift us up. So I'm gonna stay home. Wherever come will come.
Yeah, but that sort of mirror this an answer I received from a 10-day worker when I asked the question. And 10-day worker answered me, look, after election, boss, we still have to eat. Certainly, it's one of the sentiments that we need to address going forward, because with all that's going to be happening in a new economy, every Guyanese needs to benefit from it, and every guy needs to get a high standard of living, and certainly their happiness level needs to increase significantly. But going, Mr. GHK, to the PPP numbers, and the initial numbers that I received yesterday, and I don't think they have changed much. If it is that, let's just say as a PPP supporter, if you are a PPP supporter, I think you really need to also keep ahead of you some of these numbers looking into the future. In 2020, total votes that the PPP received was 233,000 votes in 2020. And in 2025, they receive a total of 207,000 votes. So the numbers have dropped according to what their base will be. And certainly if you are a PPP supporter, you also need to be able to look at these numbers, drill down on these numbers, study these numbers, and see where you are going wrong. And please, don't take this as a criticism at being anti-PPP in any way. We just want to be able to contribute a discourse, a conversation, to point out everything that that's within the context of our country. And certainly we don't want to be in any condemnation of anyone, but certainly just want to bring information from all sides. So, Mr. GHK, do you want to comment on that 233,000 to 207,000?
Yeah, well, I'll certainly take a stab at it. Thank you. And I don't have to preface anything, Mr. Singh or Mr. Ram and fellow Guyanese. I will say it as it is, and it will be received as it is. And so here's the situation. 233 versus 207. That's a 26,000. That's a 26,000 vote drop. It's
Can I
just over.
comment though? Can I comment? I'm not sure about that figure of 207,000 though, because I am saying that's not the figure I am saying for the BPPC.
What are you saying?
I am saying a figure in the vicinity of about 233 as well.
230. Oh, so close to 2020?
It's close to 2020, yes. I don't even know how would clarify, because we don't want to confuse viewers, and my own figures might be wrong. So just for us to get some idea, I am having 233. Now there is some difference between the PPP votes in the general elections and in the regional. One says 240, but I'm not seeing any significant drop, Mr. Singh.
And those numbers are extrapolate from, I believe, newsroom yesterday when they were publishing some of the initial results coming out. So my numbers are from yesterday, not current as of today. I don't think they've changed much, but there again, we could qualify that, by tomorrow.
Okay. So I'll take both numbers. I'll take 233 versus 233, and I'll take 233 versus 207. All right? So here we are. Let's give it the old college try. A 26,000 drop. Your number, Mr. Singh. A 26,000 vote drop. That's just over 10%, somewhere between 10 and 11%, I think. And every year, for 5 years, there has been a record budget that ended up in total to be upwards of 4 trillion Guyana dollars. The PPP has spent and spent and allocated and spent. Good. And yet, after all of that effort, and it says we care, and I will not contest that, and it has shared money to the children, the parents, and pensioners, and even if you didn't know, they made sure you knew. And we hear about the excise tax and so on and so forth, and amongst this thing. But at the end of that, all of that, 5 years later, 2020, 2025, you fell 26,000 votes, 26,000 votes. It is saying that people are not, the voter is not impressed. The voter is unhappy with that your own support, your own base has sent you a message. The PPP has made a very good production of crossover votes. So even with the crossover votes, making the assumption that your 207 is correct, you still lose 26,000 votes. So there is a message there, I think, to the ruling party that you have not measured up. We're not talking about a loss of 2,000 votes. And so you have not measured up despite all that you claim that you have done. And you certainly have done things, good things. But have you done enough things versus, again, we come back to the haves and the have-nots. The haves are a few, the less than 1% in this country, the less than 1% versus the have-nots, which I like to call the multitudes, straight out of the Bible. Mr. Ram may not like that, but that's his business. But the have-nots are so many that they can make their numbers be felt by staying home, which is what could have happened here. Now, looking at Mr. Ram's number, 233 versus 233, it's better, no question about it. But if I am Bharat Jagdeo, my response has got to be, well, these people are ungrateful, because if I'm doing this after all this money spent, and the argument is almost similar, is that this is what I get. Where are the pickup votes? I should be on the plus side. I should be collecting some votes by the 5, 10, 15, 20,000. But the best here, using either number, and we are on Mr. Ram's number, 233 versus 233, we haven't moved. We haven't persuaded anybody as to our authenticity, as to our potency in terms of taking care of them, taking care of the Guyanese people as a whole. So I think this is voter resentment also. This is not, yes, we hear about alienation and distrust, and all of those have relevance, but this is about voter resentment, whichever number we use, 233 versus 233 or 233 versus 207. And I think either way, if I'm the PPP Brain Trust, I'm like, we didn't do good enough. We've
Yeah.
got some work to do.
Yeah, and just for qualification of the number, Mr. Ram, my numbers was taken out yesterday, and certainly those numbers may have changed, but not materially in the sense of being objective as far as if it is that you're going to grow your base, you need to be able to exceed at least your previous year's numbers, particularly with a higher voters list. We now at 787 in terms of our voter list,
57.
757,690 compared to 2020, which was 645,229. So the numbers are growing, and yes, we do understand the flaws with the list, etc. That has been discussed many times before. Mr. Ram, just to shift a little, and again, we to advise all of our viewers, we are still talking about election 2025. We also like to make some announcements here that we trying to build a society that is much more informed from all sides, a society where one can change from within so as to affect the changes on the outside, a society that can reason together, and a society that can work to keep hope alive. Now we're trying to have these type of discussions, and that what we just talked about, or Mr. GHK has talked about, the PPP base needs to grow, not to contract. And by him talking like that, I seen some comments coming in. The voters were not impressed because GHK constantly attacked the PPP and all the accomplishments. The progress was enormous, but GHK and others turn all the PPP positives into negatives. And I really want to say to the viewer that, post that, Mr. Barrett, that I think that from an objective standpoint, if it is that your voters list is increasing, economy is increasing, then naturally your base needs to increase. And if someone is pointing that out to you, that should be taken as a positive, because he's not saying, yes, Mr. GAK, you'll go for a second. So I guess what we're trying to say here, Mr. Barrett, is that it is not a negative. It's really a constructive viewpoint. So you yourself, as a supporter, would be able to go out there and try to grow your base and become much more vibrant. So the next time around, your growth factor will be 10, 15, 20%, or it'll be pegged towards the growth factor of the votings list. And that's my point. But I see Mr. GHK is raising his hand. So go ahead, Mr. GHK.
Well, first of all, we must thank Mr. Bharat for his interest and sharing here, and that he reads the GHK column or letters or whatever. Thank you, sir. I am glad, and I'm glad that you disagree. That is part of democracy. I find that healthy, sir, and I welcome your comments. But so, if I may, I would like to say this. So the ruling party has done ABCD projects, good things, good things, good things. And here comes GHK Lall. I don't like to refer to myself in the third person, but here is GHK Lall hammering away. Oh, they do this, and oh, they do. Now, Mr. Bharat, you spoke, and all Guyanese, there's a statement there's a saying in the US, all politics is local. In other words, what has happened in the community? I like to take that a bit further and say, all politics is individual. Nothing that GHK Lall says will gain one vote for the PPP or PNC or win. And nothing that he says will make them lose one vote. That's my position. Because they will say, you know what? I used to go to the big hospital. That's what my grandmother used to call the place in town. And then they used to get this span or drugs. And now they got it, and it's the PPP make that happen. So I don't care what Lal say. And you take that down now to food prices, and we don't want to start there, do we? And you take that down now to drugs that are available, and they don't have to go to buy it at the pharmacy. I mean, come on. The people who are the ordinary man and woman from which I come, Mr. Bharat, I come from poor roots and consider myself still a poor man. I don't have any unexplained wealth, sir. That's irrelevant anyway, but I had to squeeze it in. The poor folks that I come from, if they feel a difference in their lives in terms of pension money that they have that could last them through the month, they're going out there and vote PPP. So nothing that Lal said could impact that because they feel the difference in their lives and it is tangible. And I thank you, Mr. Singh, for the courtesy of allowing me to share that word.
Of course, of course. Mr. Ram, Mr. Lomarsh Rupnarayan wrote, was there a lack of enthusiasm from them to vote? This is in respect to the voters staying away from the polls. Do you feel there was a lack of enthusiasm?
Well, there has to be some reason, but until you do an objective assessment, and we don't have exit polls, we don't have maybe Savage will do some kind of exercise. The fact is, look, the people were inundated with messages. If you were trying to look at the CPL, almost every 10 minutes, you see a PPP ad. Not a party. The PPP has absolutely misused the state resources. And don't take that from me. Take that from the Carter Center. Take that from the European Union. Electoral observer missions. They've all said that. There's been a complete abuse of state resources, including the use of army flats. There were systematic steps to restrict Mr. Mohammed. The playing field was so uneven that these elections cannot, in good conscience, be described as fair. It can be, maybe they can be described as free, and I will describe them as free. You could go in, the name was on the list, and maybe they were a little bit too free, because if Commonwealth persons were allowed to vote whilst they are holders of work permits, or they are here for some temporary purpose, even though they're on a 3-year contract, they are not allowed to vote. And GCOM would have been careless and in dereliction of their duty if they had done so. GCOM is one of the most expensive elections machinery in the world. And don't take my word for it. The GCOM itself has accepted that fact. Over the past 5 years, GCOM has been voted almost $20 billion for 440,000 people to vote. Just think of it, and still having dead people on the list. And I'm talking about Guyanese residents.
Yeah.
So we have serious problems. There's no campaign financing. The GCOM machinery, I would say all these commissioners are useless. It is time that they go. They have been there. They make decisions and then they reverse decisions. So perhaps they work at half pace, because if you undo what you've done, you allow Mohammed's agents or you don't allow Mohammed agents. Come on, you're a serious organization. This organization did not have a legal officer at a critical time when when elections are in place, so that you know what it does, what it has done in relation to an inquiry from a civil society body. It uses the Oxford Dictionary quotation in a technical issue like domicile. That's not what we as taxpayers pay. And look, I am on record and always opposed to non-resident Guyanese. You don't pay taxes here. I pay taxes.
Yeah.
And you ain't coming. You want you want cash grants. And I'm speaking to everyone there. You want cash grants out of the taxes I pay.
Yeah.
But you don't want to pay taxes in Guyana.
Yeah. Yeah.
You run from Guyana.
Yeah.
So look, and GHK and I, we're friends. GHK knows that. I don't know. I know we're friends. I don't know what he knows. You have in the 2025 budget, you have $11 billion for this part-time job scheme, paying $480,000 per year. You have cost of living measures, $9 billion. That's $20 billion. You know what? The PPP did all of that. You pack people in offices. You then get them. You get them to join your rally, to wear T-shirts that some contractor has been told, look, I want you to pay 400,000 T-shirts. That's how it's been going. Let us get serious. And all of those who want to interfere in our election process, they're free to. But let them be willing to engage in this kind of discussion, because I'm ready for it. I pay a hell of a lot of taxes. And it hurts me to see, even my family members, I tell them, look, you ain't entitled to no pension. You have been living here for so long. You're not entitled to this payment. But you see, the PPP was engaged in vote buying. And the trouble is, and that's the question I think you're getting to, Mr. Lall, what has that done in terms of the absolute numbers? Numbers are flying around. We know 2020 is 233,000 voted for the PPP. I think it's somewhere between 230. I've seen 233 again for 2025. I may have even seen a slightly higher number. But all this money that has been given away, because the PPP, they don't want party regulation.
Yeah.
You know, they're the only entity. But I wouldn't say only, because you could have an unincorporated entity. But even so, you have to have a business name. Political parties are not regulated.
Yeah.
They do what they want. They're the biggest money launderers in this country.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that publicly.
Yeah. And Mr. Ram, certainly the Carter Center pre-election report speaks a lot to some of the things that you're mentioning. Naturally, we don't have any proof or anything from Globespan standpoint about vote buying. It's been an accusation both to the PPP, also to WIN. I haven't heard much about that with the APNU party, but there's been a lot of these type of talks about those type of activities, and certainly most of them were documented in the Carter Center pre-election report.
You know, Mr. Noir, there was direct buying and there was indirect buying. The effect is the same.
Yeah, but again, I mean, we don't have that proof, and I wish, we could get some of the PPP members on the platform as well to answer some of these questions. But one of the things, Mr. Ram, that Timothy Jonas used a very impactful statement, being on Globespan many times, and what Timothy Jonas has always said is that what if the shoes was on the other foot? What if it is that it was APNU in government or another political party in government, doing these type of things that you have pointed out, or the Carter Center report has pointed out, how would those voters feel? And I think it's a question that speaks volume. It's a question that
You
speaks.
see, you see, that's only if you think morality is subjective. We have to stand for this, whether it's the PPP or the PNC or anybody.
And that's the point I'm trying to bring out, Mr. Ram.
I have taken a position on campaign financing. I've taken a position on dual citizenship. I've taken a position on access to information. It has nothing to do with political parties. We must stop this racist and race baiting. It's time that we stop it.
And Mr. GHK, that's the point that Globespan is trying to bring out in all its discussion. It's not about which specific political parties, whichever government is in place for that day. We certainly need to address these issues. What do you have to say to that, Mr. GHK?
Well, I can't help going back to 2020 as I was the chair of the Gold Board, and during that time, I called for 3 PNC ministers to be fired. Comrade Ramjatan, Winston Felix, and Miss Yearwood, I think was her name. Who's ever done that in this country whilst they're part of the ruling party? I'm not a member of the party. I've never been to a political rally. So there, and the moment I said, Mr. President Granger, respectfully, I say that you must demit office because you've lost the election. I mean, the battle axes came out. So well, as we heard just now, we talk and say, well, give us access to information. I have been out on the streets with Mr. Ram in front of the commissioner's office, in front of the office of the prime minister, and the president, to my disgust, I must say, said, oh, they're politically motivated. You're asking for information, and that is politically motivated? Come on, how do we get there? Is that our kind of reflex answer? The fellow just now was very nice to say that I've got all this power. I don't even have a social media account. When Mr. Ram spoke there, I remember I don't post to social media, never done a TikTok. So who am I influencing? We are making, I speak for myself, we are making good faith commentary into the public space in the hope, my objective is that the president and the vice president will listen and say, we really could pull up we socks down there and we will benefit from it. Because this man telling we what we own peopling and tell we, because they're frightened for tell we. But here's a man from the outside who ain't got no loyalty to we, or is not aligned. It doesn't owe us any favor. He don't owe us any favors. So he could speak his mind. And so therefore what he comes with most of the time, if not all of the time, it got something that if we listen, we can get something out of it. PNC, PPP, win. I am saying, come on, folks, if we are going to get a better Guyana, if you are going to be a better leader, if you're going to be a better party, here's the story. You got to learn to take what you don't want to hear with what you like to hear. If you don't do that, you are stagnant. If you don't do that, you're committed to mediocrity. If you don't do that, all you could admire or like to have around you is yes men and men who can't stop panting like some puppy waiting to be patted on their head,
Yeah.
That's the story, unfortunately.
Thank you, Mr. GHK. And just going back to the numbers, Mr. Mohammed Amin Jafar wrote that the numbers is about 242,000 for the PPP. And I think someone else.
I think that's correct. I think that's correct.
And I think Charlie Hope was also floating the same number. But in the context
subject to the recount. But that's the latest number.
Right. But in the context of a discussion, 242,000 out of 233 in 2020, that's just about a 5% increase, which is not significant in the context of over $4 trillion economy cumulative over the years. And some of all this good work, all this infrastructure, all the extra hospitals, the extra schools, all of this work that was done at the bridges. Of course, we really need that bridge. Huh? I totally agree with all of that. So, Mr. I think it was Charlie Hope and Mr. Mohammed that posted numbers. We're speaking in the context of an overall situation, not just, so when you look at the 5% increase in the context of a voters list that went up to 17% and over that, and then also with the amount of money that's spent, I think you would have probably want, as a PPP supporter, as a PPP member, you probably would have want to see a bigger percentage growth. And I think that where you look towards return towards your investment or return towards, what you put into the people. So I want to shift a little, Mr. Ram, if you don't mind, if we could just pause on the numbers a second. But again, I want to stress to all of our viewers that our viewpoint is not to condemn, and it's certainly not to criticize, but to point out. And as Mr. GHK said, it's really it doesn't matter which government are in place, and Mr. Ram also expressed that. It doesn't matter which government, it's just that we need to have a healthy nation. We need to have a healthy population. We need everyone's standard of living to increase. And certainly your neighbor that's next to you, if they're seeing you have a full plate and they don't have a full plate, then you're not going to have good relationship within your country. And these are all points that we want to bring out in Globespan, and I hope that we are accomplishing that. I also want to say that to all of our viewers, we try to keep our conversation as mature as possible, civil and diverse. We read comments that condemning us, comments that criticize us, and I think I've seen a very nice comment for Mr. Christopher Ram. If I could locate that as well, I certainly would read that for him. But one of the things that we don't have those bells and whistles. We don't have all that shouting. We don't have those colorful languages. We just try to have a reasonable discussion and we all agree to disagree so that at some point we could meet together and build a nation together. I think one of our two founding fathers believed in critical support. The founding father of the PPP, one of the cornerstone of building the PPP was critical support. And I think that's where we want to be for our people. Devin, could you go to that video regarding the oil? Mr. Ram, while he's going to that video, I want to shift a little because we are talking about what's in the horizon for us as well. After a week
Mr.
or
Singh,
so, we will settle in with the new government, and we certainly
before we
need to
bring
look
on
ahead
Mr.
of
Ram,
us.
could
Go
I give
ahead.
a quick comment here?
Sure.
30 seconds. Here's the story. Think of something here. 5% increase in voters. The PPP could have gotten maybe a minimum of 10% if it had started dividing that budget and allocating more for people. So cost of living would not have been such a constant, agonized cry. I have raised that over and over, and they say, what cost of living are you talking about? What inflation you talking? And now we are talking about the same thing with all these promises made. Think of that, of how the PPP could have benefited. Think of what I'm saying now. How could that have been anti-PPP or negative? Over to you.
Okay, so Devin, could we go to that video, please?
Morgan Stanley Report. The Oil Manual, heading for the most anticipated surplus. The oil market is heading for a surplus in coming quarters that is both unusually large, but also unusually well anticipated by now. The former suggests prices will likely weaken. The latter suggests this is unlikely to turn into a disorderly sell-off. We stick with our 60 Brent forecast by first quarter. Like elsewhere, consensus calls have a mixed track record in the oil market, and forecasts for oversupply and a decline in prices in the next few quarters are consensus calls. That said, it is hard to avoid the conclusion that the oil market is entering a particularly uncertain period with major surpluses on the horizon. Oil demand continues to grow, but at a rate well below the historical trend rate of growth. In addition, and unlike 2024, non-OPEC supply is delivering on its growth forecasts in 2025 and still has a particularly strong spurt towards year-end ahead. At the same time, production at OPEC's Group of 8 has increased by about 1 million barrels per day since the quota increases started.
Mr. Rama, I wanted to shift a little and just look towards the horizon as we look ahead of us, the last quarters of 2025 and of course 2026. Given our expenditure in the last 4 years and projecting outwards, I believe we peg oil in our budget, and I'm subject to correction by you, at around $70 a barrel. And now Morgan Stanley is forecasting basically that there may be a surplus. So naturally, we'll be seeing a reduction of prices. You've mentioned on this program that the oil money is finite. It's just going to be there for a certain amount of years. And I'm talking, I guess my question would be that as we go into the next set of budgetary allocations, what would be your comments in terms of acting wisely in the amount of expenditures that we put out there for infrastructures and even some of the other incentives they want to give?
I know you keep talking about history and age and so on. You recall the famous words of Prime Minister Eric Williams, money is no problem. You see now in Trinidad, money is the problem. These persons who talk about movement on prices, they themselves can influence prices. That's a reality. Fortunately for us, maybe this is why some of it's called a resource curse. Even if price drops by 10% and our production increases by 20%, we're ahead of the game. The question is, are we spending that oil money sensibly? Are we managing our economy responsibly? And I think there's a lot of debate about this on whether you could answer those questions in the affirmative. The government, for example, has argued that, look, we don't have to show you how the oil money is spent, despite what the Natural Resource Fund Act says. So we need, and I truly hope, let's just say the PPP comes out successful in these elections, as I think they will. I'm prepared to say that. I hope they learn some lessons from these elections. I hope they realize, you know what? We mustn't think people are stupid. The vice president actually said that. Now, you've spent $20 billion on part-time jobs and on cost of living measures, and you ask which cost of living you're talking about, but you have allocated it in the budget. That's about $2 million per person for that 9,000 votes. Now, and where does that take us as an economy? Are we going to keep pumping money, which drives up inflation? Because, the elementary thing, the supply and demand curve, if the demand for goods goes up, as they will when you have more money, and the supply of goods does not go up commensurately, you get inflation. It's as easy as that. And that cycle is never ending. Is the PPP going to continue with that same pattern? Is it going to spend, if you had $9 billion to spend on workers who can't find proper jobs because the market doesn't have those jobs anymore, isn't a sensible thing to do? Set up some serious training programs and get these people so that at the end of the day, at the end of the year, they can command decent money rather than sitting in an office just checking off something and then go and clean some street or something like $40,000 per month. That cannot be a sensible economic policy. And as we look forward, the PPP boasts about its managerial competence. It has been in power for 28 of the past 33 years. So one expects them to have competence. Then let us see that demonstrated. Let's hope that this wild spending that has been going on because of elections, which, if not counterproductive, they certainly have not been productive. Let's hope that this does not continue, that the PPP and its leadership are prepared to engage in meaningful discussion with our society, including civil society, which it loves to give to a party. I see today's papers again. I'm being given a party. I was considered one of the defenders of democracy in 2020. And we need to stop that. Otherwise, our society and our country will not make any progress. We need responsible spending. We do have the money. The budget now is 4 times, and it's going to be much bigger than that as we go into further production. Are we going to waste it? Are we going to have a proper procurement commission, proper petroleum commission, where you take decisions out of the hands of politicians and you put them into the hands of people who have the qualification, the experience, and the expertise to act independently, to act not for political gains, and certainly not for selfish gains, but to act in a professional and sincere manner to push Ghana forward.
Right. Thank you for that, Mr. Ram. And just a couple of additional comments. I think Paul Singh was referring to Mr. GHK, and when he said wonderfully said. So you're getting some positive, Mr. GHK, and of course you're getting some of the negatives. And Paul Singh also wrote, one of our founding fathers, Chedi Jagan, said he welcomed constructive criticism. Thank you, Paul Singh, for that. And I think as Mr. Sam wrote, Nohar, why don't you have any PPP people? And Sam, I want you to know, leading up to the election, well, let me just go back, Sam, six years ago, or 5 years ago, leading up to 2020 elections and even post 2020, many of the PPP members were on. I believe the vice president was on. Now President Ali was on, and Nandalal was on. Minister Bishop was on. I could name practically most of them used to be on Globespan. This was when they were in opposition and when they got into government. That has changed, Sam, because there are certain times that if you notice the way our media set up, they either reflect just one viewpoint. They don't try to bring in multiple viewpoints on the same platform, and that's something Globespan has been encouraging. We did invite many of the PPP members leading up to 2025 election, and they did not respond. And of course, we didn't invite any of them for tonight's program post-election because we realized we didn't invite any of the politicians actually in Globespan. I think Monday night would be the first one that should be on. Aubrey Norton is going to be on with Dr. Rose on Monday night. So Sam, just to finish what I'm trying to say to you, Globespan has not failed in inviting PPP. Globespan tries to avoid having a platform where there's just one side. Naturally, Mr. Ram comes from the civic center area, civil society, so does Mr. GHK. And of course, in most cases, most of the guests comes from civil society. So having said that, Mr. GHK, any comments in talking about the budgetary, some of the challenges that we may be facing? It's a finite revenue that's coming in, and how important it is that whichever government is in place come in a few days, how important it is for them to have a very mature fiscal budget that will reflect the benefits of all the people.
Well, thank you. From my reading of what's going on, it seems that the PPP has the clear path towards the winner's circle, and I certainly do hope, and remember, I alluded to this last night, that it would have learned some lessons. It will have picked up that not everything we say and most things that we say are intended to benefit the country. It's not to benefit a party or a leader. I will not tell any leader, Mr. Norton, Mr. Mohammed, Mr. Jagdeo, what he wants to hear. If it is in line with what I think is right, yes, he will. Now, I must differ from Mr. Ram here ever so slightly in that I'm putting on my prior hat. Yes, that Morgan Stanley forecast. Forecasts are as good as the forecasters. I've seen Goldman Sachs forecast failed and done well too. I've seen Merrill Lynch's and so on and so forth. But clearly, the OPEC plus combination, there's some stresses now because of the Ukraine conflict and the whole business of tariffs and the EU. There's some tension here. The demand is still there, I agree. However, the prices, because of supply, I will hesitate, hold back from saying oversupply. But because the prices are not where they were several months ago, and they're forecasting Brent at $60 US a barrel, I think it's going to be somewhere between that and 65 for the rest of the year. Uh, Here's what's happening. Everybody is going to want to maintain their revenue levels. And in the past, we've had about cheating, who's breaking their quota on the side, OPEC people. Now you have the non-OPEC players like Guyana, and we're a new kid on the block. We are going to be producing more but we are going to be producing and selling more into a market where other players, bigger, stronger players, are going to be supplying more into the market. So in that kind of scenario, the pressures on prices are enormous, and oil by itself has always been a volatile commodity. Some of what I've been saying here been said in the past 3 years to those same columns that some PPP folks, good brothers of ours, have referred to. And I said, Dr. Jagdeo, let's be careful. Oil is a fickle commodity. Let's be sensible in terms of the withdrawals from our rainy day fund, the natural resource fund. And it's like, what the hell do you know? Now he's talking about oil being volatile and it's got cycles. All of that was said by people like me 3 years ago. But we were, I don't know, anti-PPP then. We were stumbling blocks then. Here's the fact. We are going to be going, in my estimation, this is my forecast, into a state where there won't be a shortage of supply, and there might even be more supply than demand can take off. And that means that we will be getting less into our oil fund in New York. So because we have withdrawn so much from it, and we have now been promising so much in the political campaign, and the PPP, as I said, seemingly has the head start right now to cross the finish line, it's going to have to, people are looking for it to make good on those promises. And the money's got to come from somewhere. And the oil fund is going to take it, but can it manage with that, especially when there will be how much will the percentage will be oil to the economy? How much will the non-oil economy be? I am asking myself, how long will gold price stay upwards of 3,000 US dollars an ounce? And so there are this confluence of situations where each one is saying that the amount of money, I'm simplifying this, coming into our coffers, I anticipate will be less. So we're going to have to fund our budgets. And I think the budgets are going to be just as big. I don't see a big drop here. So the combination of withdrawals, tax revenues, and borrowings, that's where the first challenge is. And the second is, how do we split that budget pie? Because you are going to have to tell the people that you say, I'm going to give you so much money, for pensions, so much money for this, so many billions for that, so many, and these billions after a while add up. How long are we going to be able to maintain that level of spending? Because I'll tell you something, and I do not get the impression that it is. When oil prices go in a slump, sometimes it can be in a real prolonged slump. And for the enlightenment of listeners, and I'm sorry for my presumptuousness, oil has fallen as low as 10 or into negative territory, dollars a barrel, and negative territory. See, we're not going to go there. I don't think we're going to go anywhere near there. But given where we are, we cannot afford much decline in oil prices, which will impact how much we can spend. And therefore, it is important, I agree with Mr. Ram here, the choices we make, the decisions we make intra-budget, and then how we use the money that has been allocated. And I think we're going to really have some skillful management. I remember Greenspan, Fed Chief Alan Greenspan, talking about soft landing of the economy, and all of us applauded, including myself, until the thing blew up after he left with the mortgage crisis. I think that we have some challenges ahead of us. We need to put our heads together. Do not look upon things as criticism. Look upon it, folks, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Minister, as being a whisper in your ear, in the public ear. If you hear this and you take a piece of it, we can go there can be enhancement, and all this scrambling about who voted for whom and who stayed home, and that could be avoided. Let's deal with the people, and let's deal with this thing properly. And I think Guyana can be in an economy and a government and a place where we all can be proud.
Yeah, and Mr. GHK, I have not failed on this program to point out practically every time I'm on this program, Dr. Miles Monroe quote that criticism is another set of information that help us to rise higher or grow. And I see one of our viewers also posted that we should think about migrating from Guyana. And I think in that context, the migration still continues, and it's sort of reflective
It
of,
does.
yeah,
It does. And I am
reflects
a
the,
remigrant here. I am a remigrant here. And so you are living over there, and people are leaving 5,000 minimum a year permanently.
yeah, and certainly a nation that is in good health is for all of us to enjoy, each Guyanese. Mr. Ram, I'd like to end Globespan with a voice of hope for the people. We need to point out to them that, look, no matter which government is in of the day, there is hope for Guyana changing in the trajectory if we need to move away where we've been for the last 60 years, and of course look towards a better country for
Not
all
hearing you.
Guyanese. What I was saying is that I like to ask for your comments, your closing comments with a voice of hope for the people. Hope that Guyana could change in spite of whose government is it, APNU, PPP, WIN, whichever one is in government. The trajectory of the country could change if we can change from within, and certainly if you could leave them with a voice of hope in what they could look forward to, so they themselves would, feel a little more valuable in terms of where they stand as a Guyanese.
Well, I think we can start by saying we did have reasonably good elections. For the first time, we have not had the kind of failure that has plagued us. I am concerned, and I remember, I think it was in '64, sitting on the seawall and the triumphalism, and I saw a bit of it out of the PPP this afternoon. This is not time for triumphalism. This is time for us to get together and try and work. We have the PNC, the APNU has never done as badly. I hope that Mr. Aubrey Norton takes the message that was sent to him. In some ways, the PNC has nowhere to go But they have to reassemble the plan as to how they're going to get out of the mess they're in. The very few MPs and Amanza Desir apparently has got a seat. They win all untested persons. I don't think I'm not sure that there's more than 3 persons in that party who have had ministerial experience of any sort. So we as a society, professionals need to make ourselves available. If the government listens to us, we let your budget be a genuine people's budget, as I learned in Grenada. If we can use these elections, the 2025 elections, as a cautionary note that, look, get your act together, all of you Guyanese. Don't go for triumphalism. Note that after all that money, all you've got perhaps is 9,000 votes more. That itself is a bit of a slap in the face. But we're all Guyanese. We're alive. We've survived the elections. Let us try to work together for the good of our country.
Thank you so much. Those very wise words of wisdom there. Certainly, if I was on the other side, I would love to receive those words because it would help me grow and take corrective measures. So thank you, Mr. Ram. Mr. GHK, voice of hope. What could we leave our Guyanese brothers and sisters with that where we could be able to have a better country in the near future for all Guyanese?
We have something on Wall Street that after a big project, a big exercise, we regroup and say, let's conduct a post-mortem. What are the things we've learned here? What are the weaknesses we have identified and the strengths? What are the lessons that we gather? And I think that Vice President Jagdeo, and I speak to him as a brother, I am not competing for office. I don't care about that. I'm saying he's got the know-how behind him after so many decades in office at various levels. Use that skill for positive. Do not see enemies under every rock. I did not come back to this country to be an enemy of the PPP or PNC, but I've come back to be a friend of the Guyanese people. And I think that he can be a force for good. The vice president influenced the president along those same lines and set an example for the minister, the entire government. Set an example for the opposition. I am delighted, so I encourage, I exhort the PPP. Pick up from what the people are saying. They are hopeful. They are saying, we need somebody to be there for us. And this government, the PPP, it looks like, please, don't let it come back to this here. I'm grateful, I'm glad that Miss Amanza Walton Desir has gotten a seat. I feel she's part of the wave of the future. We've got the Win people. They have startled all of us. And they have to learn, and they have to learn in a new way. Not of the, what is in it for me? Public service, there's a statement, Mr. Singh, you should know in the United States. Public service is a patriotic duty. It is not about self-enrichment. And I would love to see that be the Win motto, the Win practice, the PNC practice, the PPP practice, the whomever practice, and think of what that inspiration, that example, that standard can be set for us here. We've got some money. We've got some more money coming, blessings from the stuff out of the ground. So we will self-destruct if we keep fighting each other. If I am ready to say, tell me what you need and I can tell you if I can help or point you. And that's where we are. And so I am grateful to have participated in this program tonight, that you've called me. I'm thankful for Mr. Ram's comments. And so I think, good and bad, who agrees or not, we can do so much more together, and the future can be so much better if we commit to it and commit to each other. And with that, I say thank you and good night to everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lall. Thank you. I want to thank some of our viewers, loyal viewers, Mr. Neville Sital, always there defending Globespan. We had Mr. Jay Barrett. We have Paul Singh. We got quite a few people that's always on Globespan, and we certainly appreciate it. And to that person in the West Coast, Demerara, that I spoke to today, who said that, you know, the things that they hear in Globespan, they're not hearing from their mainstream news in locally, and how important it is for us to continue with Globespan. And here again, I'm saying to all of our viewers tonight, it is important for us to have a diverse conversation, and it's certainly important for us to be able to agree to disagree, so we could help build a better nation. And, you know, for all Guyanese. So once again, thank you all. Dr. Rose will be on again Monday night, and from there on, we will continue to have Globespan on Wednesday nights. So thank you guys, and thank you for joining Globespan. Thank you, Mr. Ram, GHK. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.